I'd like to call this May 14th, 2026 Board of Education work session to order. George, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Here.
Ms. Hafner? Not present. Mr. Micko?
Here.
Mr. Wall?
Here.
And Mrs. Hausum?
Here.
We have 4 present.
We can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda are strategic priorities. Our district has developed and is currently engaged in a 3-year strategic plan which reflects the values, beliefs, and hopes of our students, staff, parents, and community. There are 4 strategic priorities to the plan: transforming teaching and learning, aligning staff and resources, cultivating culture and climate, and leveraging funding and facilities. Our strategic priorities give actionable focus to our district's purpose and mission and guide the work of our strategic plan.
And Mrs. Hausum and members of the board, this afternoon we received a letter from Ms. Hafner formally resigning from the Board of Education. She has shared a letter that I'll read. Members of the board, please accept this letter as my formal resignation from my position as a member of the Strongsville Board of Education, effective immediately. Serving on the board has been a meaningful opportunity to support our students, staff, and community. I am grateful for the trust placed in me for the collaborative work we have accomplished together during my tenure. After careful consideration, I have decided to step down. This decision was not made lightly, and I remain committed to the district's continued success. I appreciate the dedication of my fellow board members, administrators, teachers, and community stakeholders. I am confident the district will continue to move forward in a positive direction. Thank you again for the opportunity to serve. Sincerely, Megan Hafner.
Thanks, George. I need a motion to accept the resignation.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
George, can you take the roll?
Yep. Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
And Mr. Micko?
Yes.
Motion carries. And then I'll add this to the agenda
Okay,
at some
thank
point
you.
during the meeting or when I have a break.
Thank you. We'd just like to acknowledge the resignation of Ms. Hafner. Just like to thank Megan for her willingness to serve our district and community during her time on the board, and we just wish her the best moving forward. The board will follow all applicable policies, procedures, and legal requirements regarding the vacancy process. We'll review the next steps carefully and keep the community informed as we move forward. George, can you go ahead and let us know the process and the timeline, please?
Yeah, so the process will be, it's defined as part of Ohio Revised Code and also aligned to our board policy. Since her resignation is effective immediately, so the clock for us starts now. So what the time frame looks like, and again, these time frames are defined in Ohio Revised Code, is within 10 days of the resignation, the board cannot appoint anyone. So we can have as many board meetings within that 10 days and can't appoint a new member. Once we get past that 10-day window, at the next board meeting, whether it's a regular or special board meeting, after the 10th day, the board must appoint someone at that board meeting, but no later than 30 days after the resignation, which is June 13th. So we have up until June 13th to appoint someone. If we don't meet that deadline, then it goes to the courts. And then the 10-day window is May 24th. So up to May 24th, we cannot appoint someone. After May 24th, at the next regular special board meeting, if we have one, the board would have to appoint someone. And just timeframes, our next scheduled board meetings are next Wednesday, May 20th, and then following that is Thursday, June 11th. So we'll talk later in, I believe, in executive session on the timeline of when we'll have those special meetings and the timeline for our application. So as we're still processing it.
Thank you, George. Dr. Ibe, I'll turn it over to you for recognitions.
Thank you, Ms. Hausum. We are thrilled to recognize some more of our talented athletes tonight. So I'm going to ask our athletic director, Jason Kepler, and our coach, Owen McConnell, to come on up to the podium to get us started.
Thanks, Cameron. Thanks, board. I always say this is some of the most fun parts of the job, to recognize our athletes for doing great things on such a high level. And before we begin, I just want to say thank you for the time, because I know it means a lot to our programs and our kids. Before we bring the girls up, I do want to recognize our coaching staff a little bit. They've taken over the program now for 2 years, and they've done some very, very incredible things for gymnastics in Strongsville here. In the athletic department, we often push our coaches to make hard things easy for our kids. And when you have a team that's as talented and skilled as all these gymnasts out here, that can be a challenge. They're good at so many things already. It could be hard to find all the things to push them to make something that's hard easy. But our coaching staff, Owen McConnell and Katie Capel, they found countless ways to do that throughout their 2 years. I'll just highlight a little bit of it before I bring those two up. But athletically, you look to do things to separate yourself from what everyone else does. And they've come up with a comprehensive weightlifting program for our gymnasts that I don't think many other programs do. But I think the thing that's probably more impressive to me is what life skills that they're teaching these girls, and with sportsmanship, hard work, and leadership. So throughout the course of this year, I observed them do many different things to push them in those ways. They brought in mental performance coaches to help the girls get through mental blocks. They did countless service projects where the girls volunteered at things. And even with some of our biggest rivals, if it was their senior night, they made up goodie bags to give to their opponents just because it was a good thing to do. And there's countless examples of that that our coaching staff led. So I just wanted to recognize Katie and Owen for their efforts and their leadership within our program. Guys, mind coming up?
Thank you, Jason. Hi there, and thank you all for having us today. Thank you for accommodating us, especially in letting us be here during a work session. We greatly appreciate it. I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'll go ahead and start by saying thank you to everybody that made this season possible for us, to the district and to Boosters for funding our trip to states and allowing us to travel to invitationals this season. And a huge thank you to our parents this season for everything they did. Countless team meals, helping hands, donations, and cheering sections. Our season would not have been possible without the help of all of them. On that note, I would also like to give a big shout out to athletics and our athletic director, Mr. Kepler, for everything they did this season as well. Mr. Kepler showed up to multiple competitions, no matter the distance, to support these girls and this team. Having someone who consistently showed up, checked in on our athletes, and supported what we were building truly meant a lot to our team. We're very grateful for the encouragement, communication, and support throughout the season, and we appreciate everything the athletic department has done for our program. As we all know, you get out what you put into a program, and this team is proof of that. This season was an extremely special one, highlighted with a lot of success. This is the second consecutive year where Strongsville has won the GCC title outright across both competitions. These girls also accounted for over 60% of all GCC placements, which spans across 6 teams. We had 7 all-GCC athletes this year across both competitions. Those would be Macy Jovic, who won the bar title at the first competition, Abby Burek, who finished 3rd on bars and beam across the 2 meets, Brooke Eckert, who won beam at the first competition, Chloe Clark, who finished with the top floor and vault totals across both meets, Lisette Bayer, who finished 2nd on bars, Madeline Caldwell, who finished 1st on vault at the first competition, and Lauren Pizzoni, who won the all-around bars and beam across both meets and finished 2nd on the floor. More success came at our invitationals this year. These girls won 3 invitational team titles this year, beating out top schools like Magnificat multiple times. Our top regular season score came at the Win the Day invite in Cincinnati in February, where we finished in first with a 144.225, making that the second highest team score in Strongsville history at the time. That score later moved to 3rd when we scored a 144.925 in the state team final, finishing in 3rd, tying our performance from last year. To add more records to this record-breaking season, these girls contributed to the top team total on the bars in the entire state, and by well over a point, which is a very incredible feat and the first time in Strongsville history. This record-breaking bar performance came in the last event and sealed the third-place finish for our girls. Our state bar lineup consisted of Violet Keefe, Sienna Kinsella, Chloe Clark, Abby Burek, Lisette Bear, and Lauren Pizzoni. The rotation was capped off with a 9.6 from Lauren, the highest bar score of the entire championships, and now the highest bar score in Strongsville program history. Lauren also broke records of her own this season, finishing as the state champion on bars, the first individual state champion in Strongsville history. She also finished 5th on beam and 6th in the all-around and added herself to the Strongsville record book a few times. She now holds the first, second, and third place bar scores, the second place on floor, and is tied for third place in the all-around. Our other individual competitor at states, Abby Burek, competed on bars for the second year in a row and improved her placement by 8 places this season. Abby also competed all-around in the state team final and set career highs in the all-around and on beam. In the team final, the team was led by Sienna Cancella in the all-around, beam, and vault, where she set career highs on all 3. Macy Jovic led our team on floor with a career high performance as well.
This year was highlighted by so much success, but as coaches, we believed victories also happened off the floor as well. This season, we saw these girls grow in confidence, leadership, and support for one another. They learned how to handle pressure, overcome setbacks, and represent our school with maturity and pride. We recognized these athletes on and off the floor and awarded the most standout athletes this season. This season, our MVP award winner was Lauren Pizzoni. Our Gymnast of the Year was Chloe Clark. Our Newcomer of the Year was Lisette Bear. Our 2 Most Improved awards this season went to Kelsey Mooney and Brooke Eckert, and our Leadership Award went to Megan Whitaker. This team's actions this season have made us, as coaches, the most proud of who they are. After missing Brecksville Senior Night competition due to weather, they delivered cards and gift cards to the Brecksville seniors at the next competition. This season, they also welcomed an individual from Bay Village into the group as an honorary Mustang and carried her as part of the team all the way through her own state appearance, including showing up as a team to our district and state meets to cheer her on and support. These girls planned countless fundraisers for their team, showed up to the weight room multiple times a week in the summer to get stronger, and planned team bonding activities all year long. This group has balanced sports, school, and life, overcame injuries and setbacks, built their team culture in the process. It's incredible to see a group of 21 teenagers so tightly knit. We couldn't be more proud of the support and love they have for this team and for one another. We are truly blessed with an incredible group that gets along so well and care about each other like sisters. We are so proud of the family they have become. And lastly, we would like to give the biggest thank you to our team captain, Megan Whitaker. As the one lone senior this year, Megan stepped up and carried this team to the finish line on and off the floor this year. A single thank you can't even sum up the amount of dedication, care, love, and passion she has given this team this season. She was always the first person to rally the team, keep them in check, lend a helping hand, be a shoulder to cry on, anything you can think of. She's an incredible teammate to all of these girls and an excellent role model for years to come. A good leader makes our jobs that much easier as well, and this team would not be complete without this gymnast at the forefront. She is the heart and soul of this team and the reason this team is so special. She leaves behind big shoes to fill for the rest of us, and we will miss her so much.
A final thank you to everyone who made this season so special for us. Your support meant the world to us this season, and we look forward to it in the future. This team is a prime example of what happens when you pour your support into a program and trust the process. We look forward to helping this program grow and are so excited to see what the future holds for our Mustang Gymnastics family. Thank you. Now, when I call your name, you can get a certificate and then go around and shake hands, okay? First, we have Lisette Bear. Rachel Barton. Ahana Bagat. Abigail Burek. Madeline Caldwell. Sienna Kinsella. Chloe Clark. Brooke Eckert. Paige Grimm.
How are you? Congratulations.
Lucy Havel.
Way to support each other. I love it.
Macy Jovic.
Way to work together as a team. Yeah.
Emma Jersich.
Real power. Love it.
Violet Keefe.
Congratulations. I just love that. I love the boundary. Yeah. Really
Lena
nice
Leahy. Olga Mashevska.
Way to go. Way to keep supporting each other. I love that.
Congratulations.
Love how you
Samantha
guys
Mager,
support each other. That's awesome.
Congratulations.
You should be so proud of yourself.
Kelsey Mooney,
Way to go. Love
Michaela
it.
Nero,
Team.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Lauren Pizzoni,
Such a great guy. You should be really proud.
and Megan Whitaker.
Congratulations.
Way to support each other. Way to support each other. Nice job. Thank you for your leadership. It was amazing. Thank you. I just love how you bring it together. Girls supporting girls. That's awesome. I love it.
Congratulations.
Way to go. Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations. 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 Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Well, once again, on behalf of the board and the entire district, we are so proud of not only what you accomplish competitively, but what you do outside the floor as well. Unfortunately, I was down in Columbus when you guys were in the States, and I was trying to maneuver my own kids' stuff. But Mr. Kepler, as you said, he's at everything. And so he was keeping me up to date, and just so proud of what you guys have accomplished, and it seems like what a wonderful culture you have. So let's give him another round of applause for all that they've done. And it's to continue on. We have one more recognition tonight, so I'd like to bring Tina Ludwig, a representative from the Ohio Auditor of State Office, up to the podium to share a much-deserved recognition of our district, our Treasurer's Office, and our Treasurer George.
Thank you so much for a few minutes on your agenda. We are here to celebrate a job well done. My name is Tina Ludwig. I am Auditor of State Keith Faber's Northeast Ohio Regional Liaison. Or as the auditor likes to say, I'm your personal customer service representative. So it's my honor to be here on behalf of Auditor Faber to present the Auditor of State Award with Distinction to the Strongsville City School District. Each year, our office is responsible for conducting more than 4,200 audits of our 6,000 clients statewide. This award places your organization in a very select group, as only about 4% of our clients qualify for it. The Auditor of State Award with Distinction is presented to local governments and school districts upon the completion of a financial audit that meet the following criteria defined as a clean audit report. It's a big deal that I have to make sure to bring a cheat sheet so I don't forget all of the requirements because it's very selective. The entity must file financial reports with the auditor's office by the statutory due date without extension on a GAAP accounting basis and prepare a comprehensive annual financial report. And if you've ever seen one of those, it's a lot of work. The audit report does not contain any findings for recovery, material citations, material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, uniform guidance findings, or question costs. The entity's management letter contains no comments related to ethics referrals, question costs less than the threshold per uniform guidance, lack of timely report submission, bank reconciliation issues, failure to obtain a timely single audit in accordance with uniform guidance, findings for recovery less than $500, and public meetings or public records issues. This award represents the hard work of all of the Strongsville City School District staff and employees who make every effort each day to attain accounting excellence. We'd like to recognize the board, the administration, and finance department that have done an outstanding job watching over every dollar. What this truly means is that across the entire organization, you have the people and processes in place that understand fiscal accountability. Specifically, we want to recognize your treasurer, George Anagnosto, for his leadership, professionalism, and exceptional commitment to fiscal integrity. On behalf of Auditor Faber, I would like to present the Strongsville City School District with the Auditor of State Award with Distinction. Congratulations.
I will just add, this is the sixth year we received this award. And I just want to highlight what Tina said. It's all the employees. We're the conduit for the audit, but it's a team effort. It has to be alignment across the entire organization. So thank you to the leadership of the board, Dr. Abbott, your leadership, and everyone. As she's said several times, it's just an organizational effort where everyone has to be in alignment. So this is a district award, just not the treasurer's office. So thank you. Thanks for making the trip down.
So congratulations to George and the entire team, and thank you, Tina, for being here. You know, one of the things we've been working on is our communications, and so we've partnered with a group called AdCom to look at how we communicate outside of just the people that are directly connected with us. And so one of the first suggestions that came out of that is, like, you know, we've got to go and do more real style videos and make things a little more searchable on YouTube instead of these long videos. So Mr. Faust, I know you're back here. But the first one that we're going to put out is a short clip from that, because I want everybody to be able to capture what Tina said, which is we are one of only 4% of school districts that get this recognition. So when someone wants to point fingers or say we don't know what to do with our finances, or we got too much money, or we got too little, or we're handling it the wrong way, we've got a 30-second reel to say, look at all the things that we do that is not just us tooting our own horn, but recognized by the state of Ohio. So I know all the people in this audience that are supporters of the work that we do can use that, could share that, because it is something to be stood up upon and applauded upon, the work that you do, and put us in a great place. So thank you for doing that. So Dan will have that out by tomorrow morning. That's right. I like it, Dan. So we do have, although not formal recognitions, we do have two positions that we would like to highlight before we end this section of the agenda. So first, I'm going to ask Jason Kepler to come back up to the podium as we have a recommendation for our new Assistant Athletic Director for the board to consider. So Jason and Kirsten, if you'd like to come up to the podium, please.
Thanks again, Cameron. Before I introduce Kirsten to the group, I do want to give everybody a glimpse inside of the process and how we got here, just to kind of get to know her a little bit better and her experience. But before we even get there, I do want to say thank you to the interview committee. It was a heavy lift, a big time investment, and it took a lot of time. And it wasn't that they had a lot of time to give it, but they do realize how important this position is to our community, our school, and our kids. Throughout the interview process, initially we sought out to hire a very specific person. We wanted somebody that had some experience in athletic administration. On top of that, we wanted them to have all the important skills required of the position. First and foremost, probably the most important thing from my perspective was somebody that just knows how to people. They know how to build relationships with coaches and kids and all of our other stakeholders throughout the department, but more importantly than that, leading our coaches to lead our kids. Additionally, as you know, this is a huge department, lots of information to keep organized, so the person had to be organized, and the person also had to be or have a deep passion for impacting kids throughout athletics. Throughout the process, we had some really, really qualified candidates. It was actually really fun sorting through it all because I knew early on that we were going to get such a really good person in this position. There were athletic administrators from Division I high schools that we took a look at. But along the way, there were 150 applicants, 40 first-round screeners, 10 second-rounders, 3 third-rounders, and throughout the process, Kirsten Millett was the person that we felt as though was the best fit for our kids, for our community, and our department. She's coming to us from Bay City Schools, where she has coached 4 different sports. And going back to that love to impact kids through athletics, I don't know we have too many coaches at the high school that's coached 4 different sports. But she's coached 4 sports: track, basketball, volleyball, cross country, and she was also assistant AD out in Bay for a handful of years. And then on top of that, she's been at Avon coaching most recently. So she comes to us from 2 very high-achieving school districts, and we couldn't be any more excited to introduce Kirsten to the group. So, Kirsten?
I'm very excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to becoming part of the Strongsville family.
So exciting. Thank you. Congrats. I've heard great things about you. What are they going to do?
Secondly, we've had, a couple years ago, the board and I worked on some structural changes to how we do things instructionally at a district level. You know, as a district, like anybody, you've got to look at how you evolve and change and how you need to be best staffed to meet future demands. And so we did some structural changes there a few years ago, and so this year we began taking a look operationally where we need to evolve and grow and make some changes. And so one of those changes, taking a look at our facility needs and operational needs, is to give Mr. Breckner and his office some additional support. So we are creating, it's on the agenda later on today, but we're creating an assistant operations manager position. And I would like to turn it over to Steve Breckner, who's going to introduce his recommendation and ask Keith to come to the podium as well.
And I know you've probably seen Keith, but you've never seen him like this, without the jeans or work shoes. So I'm going to take a few minutes and reintroduce you to Keith, because he deserves it, also because I've seen this man work next to power lines, stare down the business end of broken water mains, septic lines, but I've never seen him this nervous. So he's going to sit here for a little bit. But when I came on board, Keith came on board as the maintenance foreman 8 years ago. And when we started talking to each other, it was very evident that we needed to have some major changes in the maintenance department, for reasons that are known to many people. He took on that. He took on not only improving the skill set of the maintenance department so that it could become what I feel is a premier maintenance department. I put him up against anyone in the state, and I would take him nationally, to say what we do. Under his tutelage, we've eliminated the biggest part of any kind of third-party mechanical operators coming in, whether that be HVAC, plumbing, concrete. We're one of the few that do our own concrete work, which saves us a bunch of money. My favorite story with Keith on this is we were building the tennis courts with a very good partner. It wasn't like they were somebody we hadn't worked with before. And Keith was in the meeting, and the gentleman, the project manager from this company, said, well, we're going to do the concrete curbs. It's going to take us X amount of time. And Keith spoke up and said, nope, we got the curbs. We'll take care of it ourselves. We'll do it for a fraction of the cost. And the guy just looked at him and said, that's very unusual. And he said, yeah. He goes, are you sure you could do it? And he said, buddy, if I knew how to put a tennis court in, we wouldn't even be talking to you right now. So that's just the attitude the approach is with. I've seen under his tutelage, the department has done great things. We've saved countless number of taxpayer dollars, kept them in-house so that we can keep it for the students and the staff in the buildings. So as we went through this process and these discussions, and I do appreciate the board receiving those discussions well and allowing for this opportunity, as we talked about people in the district that could take this position, he, of course, is the one that came to the forefront of our minds for what he's done, not only for the district, what he's done with the maintenance department, how he's helped change the culture. And I feel that his assistance and his oversight over the maintenance, custodial, and stage is going to do nothing more than what he's already done, is help save us money, help make us safer for kids, help make the buildings warm, dry, and safe, which is always our goal. And I look forward to working with him and seeing the great things that he does as he takes this position on. So I've kept him waiting long enough. I know he's dying to talk to you.
I'm just very thankful for the opportunity, and I'm super excited to start this new role in my career.
You forgot building containers. Yeah. Congratulations.
So we are absolutely thrilled to have Kirsten on staff and to see Keith work throughout the years to continue to take the next step, and to now be a part of the leadership team is I know he's really excited, and so are we. And just because I brought it up, the one thing we are proud about as well, as we evolved and look at how we're adapting operations to provide more support to Steve's department, we are also reorganizing how we service and support technology in the district. And the changes that we are able to make are at a minimal cost. So we're able to be right-fitted for the future and do so in a budget-conscious way during this time. So once again, thank you to our athletes. Thank you to George and his team, and Keith and Kirsten. So let's give everybody another round of applause.
What a great night of recognition. I didn't think the gymnastics team was ever going to end. You have a lot of girls on your team. I was able to catch a meet this week, but you guys are so spread out, or this year, you are all spread out throughout the gym, so I didn't realize how many girls you have on the team. So great job, coaches, and congratulations again, girls. Keith and Kristen, congratulations. Can't wait to see the great work that you guys do in the upcoming years. And I love how you kept using the word evolve. A district of our size and of our age, we're not stagnant. And we will continue to evolve and do what's right for our students. So thank you, everybody. This is a great time in the agenda. If anyone, I know there's 10 school days left, if anybody's counting. If anyone needs to last minute homework or exams to prep for, now's a great time to head out. Thanks for being here. And George, congratulations again to you too. 6 consecutive years good for you. So
Not consecutive, but 6.
they're not consecutive, but 6, but yes. All right, we'll just go consecutive.
What's that? Yeah.
6 out of 7, we're going to give it to you. We said it.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see Dan's video tonight.
I know, right? You like how I put that in the... That's right. Saved us all some time.
All right. It's time in the agenda for public comment. We welcome comments. We do ask that you abide by the guidelines of our policy. When your name is called, please stand and state your name, address, and topic. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. If your comment involves a problem with a student, employee, or board member, please do not address them by name. The primary role of the Board of Education is to listen and reflect on your comments. Sometimes board members may respond or ask questions, but not always. Whether we respond or not, your input is valued. So we do have a few slips. I'm going to start with Miss Katie Drake.
My name is Katie Drake, and I live at 20464 Village Green Drive, Strongsville, Ohio, 44149. I was going to address the board member that is not here, so I don't know if I need to really still continue addressing that, but I did want to talk about the bond for just a minute and say thank you to all our board members and Dr. Ryba and Jenny for all your hard work. The bond not passing is super disappointing across the board, but I also feel like it wasn't in a lack of trying on your effort. I don't want you guys to feel like this is a reflection of your not working hard enough, not doing enough, because we all saw you guys out there. So I want to say thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your sacrifices. Thank you to your families for giving you up for so long. I think I just want to take a moment to honor that. And Megan is not here, but I wanted to say to her, we care about you as a person. We want you to get the help you need. And I think she did this. She wanted to be on the board because she cared about our community. And I was going to ask her, because she cared about our community, to please step down because our community is suffering because she's still here. And she's a liability at this point. And I hate saying that because I believe the best in everybody and I want to see good things for people. I have a really hard time being negative about anyone, but I care about our kids and I wanted to give them a voice. And I feel like that's what's best for our kids right now. So once again, thank you, board, for all your hard work. I'm so grateful. That's it.
Next, we have Lauren Friedberg.
Well, I'm shorter than Katie. Hi. My name's Lauren Friedberg. I live at 12507 Saddlebrook Lane in Strongsville. I had a totally different speech prepared, so I'm just going to wing it. You yell at me if I go over 2 minutes, as everyone should abide by the rules. So, okay, yeah, I know, but I already started. So I've lived here since 2010, and I've been an active member of the PTA. I'm on a nonprofit board. I volunteer a lot, and I have a full-time job. I am very busy with work, and I'm an expert at what I do. I do not know, anything about the school district and the finances except for what I have learned from you all, from going to PTA meetings, from listening to Dr. Ryba. I actually answered a question at a community meeting based on something he told me like 10 years ago because I remembered because he explained it so well. And I think it's important for community members to understand that we are not experts at running the business that is Strongsville City Schools. It is a business. You're the CEO, COO, CFO, and we need to recognize when the experts are telling us what they need to run this business. So that's all I want to say. Thanks.
Clint Needham. Maggie Koza.
Maggie Koza, 9812 Hazelwood Avenue. I also had something, but I am me, so I also had a backup. No, but for real, one thing that I do want to say, and I meant what I said, is I know that Megan's listening, and I know we're not supposed to address her by name, but I feel for her. And the whole thing was very sad. And the only thing I want to say to her is I'm praying for her. I hope she's getting what she needs. Healing is not easy. None of this was fun for me. The only reason why I clapped is that's what I do when my children make a good decision, is we do positive reinforcement. I'm so glad you made the right decision. Now there has to be work. And I hope that one day she does decide to come back, and it'd be really cool if maybe she helped us with DARE and she helped us talk to some of the kids about some of the stuff. I'd be willing to help her with that because I know that route too. But the second part of this I need to address is I'm also upset that the bond issue didn't pass. A lot of us worked really hard. We tried to coordinate many meetings. I tried really hard to make sure that you guys came to everything that you could. If I knew there was somewhere you guys go, I was trying to drop hints everywhere I could. We lost by 445 votes. And it's frustrating. It's just so frustrating because if we didn't have all of this going on, I think that we could have pulled off 446 votes and really pulled us through. And I think that there's just been so much going on with misinformation and dishonesty and selfishness that it needs to start to rectify at some point. And I think we need to continue doing the right things. We all know a third person ran. And she lost, and she took it gracefully, and she still came back. She showed back up. She still did what she had to do for this community because that's the kind of person she is. She has 3 kids in the district. She puts her heart and energy into things. You already know who I'm talking about. I really recommend, and I know probably I'm not supposed to do this, but I wish other people would join me in this. I highly recommend that if she applies, you really consider appointing Krista Heckman. She does a lot. She can help you connect to parents that you may have trouble connecting to. That's what I do for you. I know there's plenty of neurodivergent parents in this community who are very confused with everything, and I say, hey, I can help you with that because I've been there. I know what it's like to read wordy emails. I know what it's like to read financial stuff and not understand numbers, and sometimes I have to have my husband reiterate everything to me, and that's why he's here with me today, because he's very supportive of the things I do, especially when I force him. But I just needed to get that out, and I needed to say that. We've had 4 failures under pretty much the same leadership, too, and I think that that also needs to be considered, and we need to start giving people another chance to lead. And that's all I have to say.
Last, we have Nicole Sisler.
Hello. Let's see. Okay. Hi, Nikki Sisler, 17512 West 130th. I also was here out of concern that was addressed. So I did want to start, though, by saying thank you to Dr. Reiber for responding to my email yesterday. As a constituent, I'm going to be brutally honest. I have wrote 4 emails to the board in the time that my children have been in school. I have a 26-year-old who graduated from Strongsville, and I have a 7th grader. In that time, I have had very little correspondence back from the board. I was not asking for answers yesterday when I sent an email, but the silence was deafening, which is why I'm here tonight. So this is not I understand information may have trickled in. I understand you may not have had things to share. But just simple rapport building, as someone who does this with other people and helps build communities, that's what's lacking for me, if I'm going to be completely transparent. All I wanted was we hear you, Ms. Sisler, like Mr. Riva did, and we understand your concern. So we'll get there. Give us time. Do you know what I got? Nothing, which is why I'm here now. But in the process of that, I did kind of go down a rabbit hole, and I started thinking about the drug testing for the students. So in the process of that, I came across some numbers, and I realized that we're spending near $19 a drug test. I think we gave around 1,500 drug tests last year. So the drug test program at this point is pretty consequential, right? Like, we're thinking as a board or as a community that maybe it's a deterrent for the kids. I'm not sure exactly where our thoughts are. But I know that when this did get passed through or voted on, it was told to the community that this would be random. So as a parent of kids in multiple sports across middle school and high school, it's not. So what are we doing with that? That's a big question to me. When we tell the football team 3 days in advance before the weekend hits that they're going to be tested, of course our numbers are going to be 0. So what is the consequence for that too? Like, I guess I'm confused, and maybe you guys don't have an answer. I'm a very patient person. I am happy to have a response back at some later point if someone has one, but I don't understand where that it got lost. Like, it's not random, right? I mean, like, am I missing something? Because I didn't even think that whole groups would be tested at the same time. So, like, we're telling everyone they're tested days in advance. And then I think we have no positive tests at the middle school. If I'm wrong, someone could correct me. So are we saying now maybe we reevaluate those funds? Like, obviously, not passing levies, bonds failing, is that where our money should be spent? So I don't even expect you guys to answer that for me right now. I guess I just want it to be food for thought. Like, I'm a very rational person, but I hope that that's something that we look at and that we can give more answers to for better transparency and, like, building that as a community, because that might be what we're missing. Thank you.
All right, that concludes public comment. We're going to move on in the agenda. Next, we have approval of minutes. Motion to approve the minutes of the April 23rd, 2026 regular meeting. All audio recordings will be a permanent part of the minutes and are available upon request through the treasurer's office. Video recordings shall be maintained based on the availability of the selected digital online platform. All right, George, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hausum. Do you have a discussion item for the board tonight, and it was kind of,
George, remember, we're going to switch the order. We're going to go to baseball, softball.
oh, that's right. Sorry.
No, that's okay. A lot going on today. So what we're going to do just for time, Chris Tonar, I'm going to ask Chris to come up. Chris is a partner that we've been working with through GPD. As the board knows, we were given direction and the board approvals to take a look at the baseball softball project of putting turf there, doing some upgrades, and they've been doing that work in collaboration with Jason Kepler and a variety of our folks internally over the past months. We are now at a point where the design is where it needs to be, the scope of the project is where it needs to be, it's in your board docs, but also the 8.5 by 14 sheet. It gives you the scope there. So prior to me turning it over to Chris, here's what I want to share with you, the goal of this conversation. What we want to do today is Chris is going to give an overview of the scope. Jason's here too if Jason wants to add any context at all. But we want to take a look at it, and we want to come to consensus on direction for Chris as to if there's anything in this scope that you don't like, or there's anything missing that you want to see. Consensus is what we need tonight. After that, this discussion will give Chris the ability to go out and bid this project.
Correct.
Once that project is bid based on this scope, then he would come back to you to say, here's the bids we got, and the official vote would happen then to approve the project, all in consideration of moving forward to have this completed by spring season next year. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris to start us on the conversation.
I brought some boards. I also have a PDF if we want to put on the screen. I don't know if that's easier.
George, I think George has it in the, it's in the.
This?
There you go. Yep.
There we go.
Came with backup just in case. So the concept is basically to put them back where they're at. They'll become synthetic turf. So we're really talking about from the new fence in, we're going to move around some of the bullpen area and kind of reconfigure that a little bit for you. You see the gray in the middle there is some new concrete. That's there. Because these fields, when we build them, have to be, we'll call it perfect for lack of a better word, but they're graded to allow the water to go through the field, be collected by the system underneath there, and leave the field, and then it would go to a detention pond. They actually drain better than what most parking lots do. That's to make sure we don't keep any water under the fields. That's where you get into problems over the winter. So we want to get all that water out there as fast as it gets in there. There's no water or anything left underneath the fields during any kind of freeze-thaw cycle, and it'll help not heave the carpet up at that point. The concrete there, you would never be able to tell by going out there, but those two fields are not quite the same elevation. So we had to kind of do some grading adjustments around there. So that concrete's there to kind of allow us to maintain the ADA access requirements, but then still allow some drainage to work between those two in there. So I think it'll be a nice feature. You'll have a little more flat spot in there, some more room to kind of set up tents, and then for Steve's group not to have to kind of mow and do a lot of maintenance in there. And we will do the concrete. He did leave, so I'll do the concrete as part of the project. We'll handle that. But what we didn't include is the dugouts will remain exactly where they are. They're actually configured well. We are carrying a little bit of money in there just for some upgrades. I fear the coaches maybe want to add some benches in there, some amenities like that. We're going to look at it, maybe retuck point some of the block out there, do some of that stuff there. But as far as wholesale replacement of the dugouts is not included, and your press box is in good shape. We just left that in the same place and aligned everything with that. Just it wasn't bad. It didn't seem like there was any reason to spend money on doing some stuff there. If there's anything we're missing with that, we can of course look at that. But right now we're kind of leaving that as is. So if you think about it, it's pretty much from the fence line in, scoreboard stay. We're gonna bring the softball in. You can kind of see there's a ring around the outside. That's actually where the old outfield fence is. It's going to come in about 15 feet. And that scoreboard will move a little bit just to keep it in line with the field there. The detention kind of is in that back area back there. We've been architectural review board with the city. They've been approved there. I was at planning commission report here. We've been approved there. We have to go to council for what I'll say is going to be just a pass-through vote at that point in time. We did our coordination with Northeast Ohio Sewer District, or we have some comments with them, not pretty minor stuff. They just want some more information, some different things there. So as far as the drainage and the engineering design of this, it's all done as it is, sits here. So I think we're talking about the fun stuff, colors, logos, things like that, any kind of other stuff you're thinking about. With the bidding, most of the time we've been trying to bid these with, one of the things we do is put in black vinyl fence versus galvanized fence. It looks a little nicer with your field. If we're worried about money, we can economize that, change it. That's not a huge dollar figure. We've also done that with a lot of these projects. We've been doing a lot of alternate bidding just to kind of separate some of the window dressing items out, like the logos. Maybe we do an alternate bid to see what kind of prices they come back with, different stuff there. The fence could be one of those items as well. In there, we're showing a 80-yard, we're going to call it football just because it's an easier thing for me to say right now. There's 80 yards of multi-use space in the middle. So you have football, soccer, and lacrosse markings on there. What you don't see is you don't see all the white lines for the individual yard markers you see on the football field. We're actually trying to reduce the amount of white in there just because of the fear of the baseball being white, the field being white. It's kind of that thing. We don't want to do that, so that's why some of those lines are gone. The striping you see is actually, I don't remember if your football field's that way or not, but the striping is two different colors of grass in there. Those are 15-foot sections, so they represent the 5-yard markers. So I think that if the band had to use or whatever, there's still a pretty distinctive way you can tell where you're at in the field. So I think it'll still be useful for them. But here again, just trying to minimize that amount of white we have in there. If you're wondering why it's kind of in this weird spot, the turf in the outfield is different than the infield. So we wanted to keep that kind of that play where you have people who may fall down away from that area. Not that you can't fall in that. It just is a different style of turf. It's a little bit thinner. You picture it's supposed to be like a clay type surface. It's designed for that kind of play. So that's why it's a little different. Excuse me. When we bid these, we specify a lot of things as a basis of bid. The strange thing that occurs, football is pretty easy actually. Baseball is a little bit weird because you have these high wear areas. You have the batter's boxes, the catcher's area, the pitcher's mound, first and second, third baseline where they're sliding. Those areas, different manufacturers have different systems for. So to not sole source this and leave it a little bit open, we allow them to kind of enter their bid with their system, which then we evaluate for ease of use, maintenance, and things of that nature. Some of the turf systems, they actually just go in and cut out the areas and replace the turf. It's kind of like carpet, your normal wear and tear stuff. You can remove that piece, patch in a piece. You always see where a patch is. So a lot of these actually come with a Velcro insert. It's like a 6 to 8 foot panel that Velcros out and gets put back in. Sounds real easy when I say that. It's not that easy, trust me, but it is replaceable, and there is a certain amount of replaceable systems that come with that. The thing that comes down with that is the use. How long does it last? It's hard to say. The proper maintenance and use, these things have been 10 years and they haven't even replaced a piece there. But if you're playing multiple games, maybe you're going to rent the facility out for big tournaments, things like that, you get a lot of play on it. That's going to, reduce that amount of time in that too. So, the one thing that came up in the discussion was logos. What I will tell you is don't spend your money on a big logo. You won't see it. There's no stands. It's not like your football stadium where you're up in the air and you're looking down. If you want to put a logo in there, we've done them along the edges where they do pop a little bit. You can see them. A 10 or 15 foot wide logo is going to cost you between $5,000 and $10,000. The big logos you just add zeros to those things. I don't think you get the bang. You'll see them in drone pictures. They look cool on stadiums, but they just really don't work in this kind of environment there. We are also replacing in that price those little bit of stands there at the baseball field. Those are included in there. So I think it's like a 50 or 75 person stand. So it's going to be kind of a direct replacement of something newer, a little nicer in there. Is that everything? Pretty much.
I just want to clarify. So, in the two things. First of all, I know the tennis courts are pictured there, but part of this plan would be to remove those tennis courts to help with drainage, correct?
Right. Yeah, we got some credit for impervious surface. So if we take those out and make that grass, it gives us a little bit of credit. So we just can make the pond a little smaller, makes the pipe it's small, but it does help the cause a little bit on that.
Because I know, Mr. Micko, that was one of your criteria is we had something with the tennis courts in. And then when we take a look at the practice field that could be in the outfield, besides the sports there, obviously for us, we've talked about marching band. And Jason has done his due diligence and talked with Mr. King and talked with the appropriate coaches to see, hey, does this 80-yard space meet what you would be looking for it to do? And they answered.
Absolutely. Yeah, the 80 yards was built in there because band does their is in between the 20s, so that gives them enough space to work on their performance on a field that they'll use. So.
And am I also correct, Chris, that, although we're showing graphically here where it could fit, in the actual baseball field, there would just be like little tick marks to give us, we're not actually putting those lines in the field, are we?
Right now, we're showing the exterior box.
Yeah.
I'm kind of advocating we don't do that. We
Right.
just put the tick marks and
Yeah.
maybe make them like a T, so you kind of get there'll be a line you'll see longitudinal, then you'll have a tick mark that
Do
way.
temporary paint to,
Well, you could do it in the turf. The thing's going to be is when they put those tick marks into your new turf, they're going to cut each one of those in there.
yeah.
So, not that it's a problem, that's the way you do the football fields. It's done all the time. It's a lot of work for that. So, that could be something we could economize a little bit too to kind of make that a little cheaper.
So I just want to besides the different colored green grasses in the outfield and the kind of border marks so we know where they're at, the soccer circles, the lacrosse circles, are those planned to be in there? Or?
They can be in there. They're just shown graphically
Just
now.
shown graphically.
So that's kind of something we probably want to talk about. Do we want to bid them that way? Because that's going to change the bid price a little bit because that's going to be a little more work for them to do that in that thing. But it's yes or no. You can have them in there, we don't have them in there. It's kind of we've done them on different things where we kind of put the corners in so you can easily line them that way. Kind of put the center, put the dots to guide them for it, so it makes sense. Kind of reduce that down so when you do paint it, it turns out the same every time.
Yeah.
So we can give you the kind of the corners of that, and we can give you some points of reference out there, and not do all that stuff would probably be how I would suggest you
Right.
do that. Just because you don't have a distinct need, an exact use for it,
Yeah.
so it'll be a little more versatile that way.
So board members, it's your time to talk with Chris of any items on this list or things you want to dig into a little bit more about the potential scope of this project.
Questions, comments?
You have to ask something.
Who wants to go first? I know somebody.
Can you just go over the dugout again? You're telling us the dugout is sufficient and we don't need to rehab or remodel it, and we won't regret that decision?
I don't see that block being in any kind of state of failure currently. I think inside it probably could use a little cleaning, and, everything can use a little facelift there. We didn't quite get it. I fear maybe talk with the coach a little bit more in depth and see what they think. Do they need some more batter containment units, some helmet stuff, things that hang up in there. They all kind of have these different systems now. We've done them to where I've seen them put in the big things where they have all the helmets and the little bins and whatever that just allow critters to build homes later. So there's certain things that make sense and certain things that I don't think make sense in there. But in general, I think we're going to just do a little facelift of those things, and they're in good shape there.
Thank you.
Richard, in the estimate, there is dollar amount. So if you look in the estimate, there are dollars allocated in there for upgrades or repairs or what have you of the dugout. So they will receive some attention, but just not the replacement.
Yeah, and that part I understood. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure we weren't making a decision saying redoing the dugouts is a substantial expense, and there's not a right or wrong. What I wanted to be clear on is that they're of good enough quality that we can do the repairs, but not do a total replacement.
Sure. Foundationally, they're good. They just need a little love.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
Jason, last time we talked, I asked you to go through the list and kind of see what were things that would be, things that were definitely, besides the turf and the fencing and all those things that have to be a part of the project. For example, we talked about the flagpoles. Like we have the huge flagpole right by us. Do we really need to put 2 flagpoles in for each softball, baseball field? I think your answer a couple days ago was, I don't see why we would need those.
Right.
Correct. Anything else on this list from your perspective that you saw?
Yeah, I have a list back here. I'm going to grab it real
Please,
quick.
yeah.
So I'll just say if there was any fat that needed to get trimmed, if you look on there, Cameron mentioned the flag poles. The baseball foul poles, I don't think would need to get replaced. They're in good condition. The fencing is staying the same. So that could be an expense that's saved. Softball, because the fence is changing, new foul poles would be required there. And then looking down at the miscellaneous section, there are bleachers. I think 180,000 earmarked for bleachers or stands. I would say that is, although needed, if there was a big expense that needed to get cut, we can get by with the bleachers that we have.
And that price is a little bit high, just because we were not certain about what size, that's kind of, I won't call it a Cadillac, but it's a very nice set of bleachers there for that kind of money. But bleachers are also weird. They're long lead item, and the prices vary a lot because they're all aluminum. So with the current economy and how things are going, we're being a little conservative there for a reason, just because I don't want that number could change to 250 in a month, and you'll never know there. So, and that's also something you could do later. It doesn't, because those are, they're the prime contractor, the turf guys, they won't even do that. They'll just hire a sub. Whoever they buy them from in the end will come in and install them. So that's something we could set the pad there, and they could show up any day from that point forward. So that isn't necessarily real integral to the project, to their budget when we bid that.
Jason, we're in the heart of baseball, softball season, and it's been a wet spring. Is it affecting our games?
Well, I counted all the number of postponements or cancellations we've had throughout all the levels, and it's been 72 so far this spring. So it's been a big impact.
Freshman, JV.
Yeah.
They play a lot of games.
I will say this has been probably the wettest spring we've had in a fair amount of time, but I also find myself saying that most years anymore. So it's just raining in the spring.
Yeah. And off the top of your head, can you just refresh our memory how many different sports this will affect and help?
Sure. So at a minimum, band, football, lacrosse, soccer. So boys and girls soccer, boys and girls lacrosse. But in addition to that, there's some ripple effects that it could impact other teams, even our youth programs, because it might free up other field space for those teams to practice in. But at a minimum, it would be that. I talked to PE. PE would obviously use that space in the spring. Some of the nicest weeks in the spring, PE can't get out onto the football field because we're setting up for commencement and such. So there's just so many different teams and groups that would be impacted by this project.
So to the board members, Jason shared a couple items that, maybe if we needed to cut funds would be areas to cut funds. Anything on this list that you say, hey, I can't support that, we need to remove it? So with that, I guess I'll ask consensus of, if we have the scope here, to allow Jason and Steve and Chris and I to sit down, finalize the scope, take care, look at those few things and make final decisions about the tick marks and things of that nature, and then go out for bid and then bring it back to you. That would be what we need to see if we have consensus on. Mr. Wall, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Ms. Bissell?
Can you come back to me?
Sure.
So I've expressed before, baseball is my favorite sport, and I think I work really hard to be a good spectator, and I like to watch baseball more than anything else. But as far as the timing is concerned, I have a lot of heartburn on that. I would be okay going forward with whatever planning, with the proviso that it's just planning, and so I don't know if it's fair to go out to bids, but that would be the question I would have.
I guess that's me, huh?
This is the part that I hate. I stood at the polls for 8, 9 hours Tuesday. And I talked to maybe 5 people in that time. One of them I did not know, and she said, I don't understand the baseball fields. She said, you're asking for all this money. We have kids in trailers. We have a levy. We have operating issues. I don't understand the baseball fields. That's where I am right now. And I hate it. I mean, I am a huge sports fan. It's what I do in my evenings. It's my favorite place to be with my kids or by myself. But I think, and this would go for me for the other things as well. So the things that have been on the list, not just this, but the arts, and when we have to start looking, and and I understand why we did this discussion first, but had they been flip-flopped, I mean, what we're going to see next is we have a problem financially, and it's really hard for me to have a conversation about cuts and then approve turf in the same meeting. As much as that's what I want to do, and I want that for our kids. Unfortunately, I don't think our community wants that for our kids. And so I'm with Richard on this.
So with the fact that we have split decision, any suggestions on where you want to go
I think we
forward?
have to table it until we appoint our 5th board member.
Chris, can you talk about timeline of delaying direction?
So I think what you see is we run out of good weather. We'll say October's safe. We get to November, you don't know what goes on there. It's probably going to take us a month to bid this. We'll probably have to go 3 weeks advertisement, maybe 4 weeks, just to have enough folks have time to kind of get all their pricing for the turf guy. You'll end up having a GC who will run the job. Then they'll have a turf guy, then they'll maybe a concrete and a fence, and there'll be different elements in here. So it takes a little time to 2 weeks by Ohio law is usually the minimum amount of time we would advertise something. That's simple stuff, and these things we'd probably go 3 weeks minimum. We'll have a bid evaluation period, then we'll have to come back and get that approval. So you're talking, let's just say that's around a month between the day we decide to go to bid and the day we can say you're awarded the contract. Then we have to do the contract part, which probably takes another month, so that's 2 months in there. You probably have the better part of 4 to 6 months of construction for this project here, good weather related. So we said 2 months there, so that's 6, so 8 months. I mean, that's pushing us to where we're getting towards the end of the year. So not saying the time is ticking away, but we're getting to that point where we're going to be, the idea being is when we start tearing this apart, you can't play baseball anymore. So we need to be done before winter to be able to make sure we can hit that spring. That spring sports are the tough ones. That when we get opinions with the track all the time, it kind of becomes the same kind of animal there. So not saying we're out of time, but we do have a little bit of urgency to kind of move this forward at this point in time. That's why we were kind of already doing all the planning to get all the different permits and all that stuff lined up, so we're not going to be behind on that. Those sometimes takes a lot of time too. So that stuff will not expire this year, so that it's not we're in jeopardy of losing any of that effort there. But it's more of that window of opportunity now. We can get lucky a lot of years. I mean, last couple of years we've been able to work into November and December, so that's not an issue. But I just think in the back of our minds, if we want to be ready for that spring sport, we need to be done before the snow flies this year. So really, that 6 months is probably the minimum amount of time we need. We can stretch that, push that down to maybe 5 months, but that's getting tough at that point. And I think what you see too is a lot of those contractors get busy. So when they're busy, their pencils aren't sharp. So, it becomes a bidder's advantage to kind of get that nice sweet spot to get in there too.
Any other questions for Chris while he's here? And then just so we're all aware, because we'll talk about this here in a little bit, the more we delay, the more the cost goes up, and everybody's aware of that. So that's there. So,
yeah, I think the one thing is obviously your plans you paid for. They are what they are. So that won't change very much there. It doesn't a month here or two there, or even I won't say a year, but there isn't that isn't lost value at that point in time. It's still biddable documents at that point. Now, what I don't know is with some of this approvals, if we go into the next calendar year, how that is treated by the city. I haven't asked them that yet, so I don't know how that works there.
Well, Chris, we greatly appreciate your time
Sure.
and all the work you've done for this project, and we'll keep you posted as we move through our process.
Sounds good. If there's any more questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
You can keep all the paper.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
That's previously lost.
All right, so with that, I think we're going to jump back up to George's agenda item.
All right, so what we wanted to talk about tonight was with the May levy behind us. In February, we presented the 5-year forecast, kind of gave an outlook of where we were, just kind of recap on the general fund 5-year forecast, just kind of refresh everyone's memory where we're at, where we're headed, and then we came up with some scenarios for operating if what it could look like, just to get the conversation started with the board, as if there's anything that we want to go out for November, those filing deadlines are approaching as well. So I'm going to first start with operating funds, and I think Dr. Ryan will then talk about the bond issue items, and then kind of, I guess, put together some scenarios of, or table of options for elections, and then at the end, the timelines for that. So kind of recapping where we were on the 5-year forecast, not going over the whole presentation, but just the summary part, is last school year, 25, you can see our expenditures were slightly greater than our revenue, so we started that deficit spend last year by $3.2 million. This year, we're looking at this year, fiscal year 26, we're looking at a deficit difference about 10 million, and then each year, as our revenue stay consistent and the expenditures continue to increase, that gap continues to grow. So kind of looking at the summary, the revenues over expenses for this fiscal year, and at the time of the forecast, it was 9.8 million. Right now, we're trending about a little over 10, but it'll wash out, and that difference will wash out in 2027. If you recall, our property tax collection came in $1 million less, and it had more to do, I believe, with timing of the settlement that we'll receive in the July advance, so that should work out in fiscal year 27. But anyways, as you can see, that difference continue to grow. We do have one more renewal levy. We know about the renewal levy from 2019 that was not approved by the community, that came off the books. We do have another renewal levy that was originally passed in 2002, generates about 8.4 million. So that expires at the end of this tax year, December of 2026. The first time we can be on the ballot for it is in November of 26. And then there's one more collection year, as the collection year lags the tax year. So if it's not renewed by November of 2027, that also expires. So this chart shows with the renewal not part of revenues. So as our expenditures continue to increase, fiscal year 27, we're looking at about a deficit spend of 14.2 million. That'll leave us with our end of year cash balance of 22.1 million, and the percent to cash balance is about 22%. Fiscal year 28, which is the first year that renewal levy comes into play, we're looking at a deficit spend about 21.5 million. We'll have an unencumbered balance of about 600,000 without the renewal levy, and then half of the renewal levy if it's renewed, 4.7 million, ending year cash balance, which is about 4.61%. And then, and this is including with the renewal, fiscal year 29 and 30 is when we start getting into the cash deficit, which even includes if the renewal was passed. The next graphic kind of highlights it the same way, but with just to show it with the with the renewal levy, if it was approved with the revenues. That way, it shows the apples to apples with the revenues. So this year we're, and again, deficit spending about a little over 10 million. Next year will be about 14, 17, 19 as it continues, where we get into the cash deficit in fiscal year 29, and we're almost at the end of fiscal year 26, so next year will be 27, so we'll be 2 years away from that. This is just forecast of our summary of the forecast, and then just as a reminder, we have a cash balance policy. With our cash balance policy, it states that we would have at least 90 days of operating cash. At the time was the 5-year or the 5-year forecast. Now that the forecast is 4 years, so converting it to the last year of the forecast to at least have 90 days cash balance. And as you can see, at the time of this forecast, fiscal year 29, which would have been the 4th year, we would have been a negative cash of 46 days, and then 2030 would have been negative cash days of 120. Next school year, 27, we would, let me make it larger. Next school year, 27, we would be about the 90-day cash on hand, and 28, we'd be 2024. And again, this assumes with the renewal. And then this is just our historical cash days on hand. 2022, we had the 305 days. On 23, we made the transfer to the 070 fund, which brought it down to 161. 24, we were not deficit spending at that time, so it was back to 219 days. And then with fiscal year 25, with the renewal expiring, is when we got into the deficit spend, which is spending down the cash balance until it runs out, essentially, if we do nothing. This slide was more or less, it's in the forecast, more or less, the necessity to have cash balances. And one thing that's coming in now that's going to be in play, at least for us, is if you recall at the last meeting, I gave my financial update. The county had recently set out that starting next calendar year, that they're no longer going to do the property tax advances. So now we'll receive our settlements twice a year, essentially, in the middle of March, in the middle of August. So that's 80% of our revenues, essentially, or 80% of our revenues is taxes that we'll receive twice a year in managing the cash flow. That's going to be important for having these cash balance, at least having a cash balance, because right now we start having dips in January, February, and then we get the first advance in January, but it's minimal, but it helps. The larger advance comes in February, and those payrolls in between kind of balances out, so we get the larger advance in middle of March, which gets us through July, the first advance. So without those, it's going to be a tight cash flow, and not just us, as our cash balances are starting to deteriorate, it's going to put a strain during those times where we may have to essentially have tax anticipation notes to get through that time if the county holds course, eliminating the advances on top of not having cash balance. So that's one of those necessities to have it, to manage cash flows, and then also for any emergencies that come up as well. Fiscal status by the Ohio Department of Education and the Auditor's Office. So right now, every year when we file a forecast, we file it, previously it was October and May, now it's going to be February and August. What they look at, the first it starts with the Department of Education. They evaluate every forecast that comes in. They look at two things. Line 10.10 of the forecast, it's called. It's essentially the cash balances before any renewals. So for the current year and the following year, They look at those. If those are negative, they'll flag you for, hey, what's your plan? They'll put you in a fiscal. They'll first send you a letter saying, hey, you have X number of days to submit a plan, and then from there they'll evaluate your plan and possibly do some sort of determination. And then they'll also look at the third year of the forecast, line 12.01, which is after any renewal levies. If that third year is going to be negative, they'll send you that same letter. Hey, this line is negative. You have, I think it's 60 days to submit a plan on how you're going to reduce that negative. And then once you submit the plan back to the state, they'll make a determination based on that. For right now, our third year was positive because of the renewal. It was still positive without it by 600,000. But in August, when we do this forecast again, if nothing changes, fiscal year 2029 is going to be that third year, so shift everything over a year. So most likely we'll receive a letter. I asked, I've been to some various trainings that more and more school districts are getting into this position, so they've been doing more trainings on it. I said, hey, when we file in August, when do you anticipate these letters will be received? And he said sometime in middle, end of September, beginning of October. Kind of look for those if you meet one of these criteria. So that's kind of where we're heading when when I do the presentation or when we file the forecast in August. That third year will be fiscal year 29, which as of now it's going to be negative. So at the time of the February forecast, we did some levy cost reduction modeling just to kind of give you a picture of what it would look like, and this is more timing wise. At the time of February, we just used the $10 million because it was a round, easy number. Not a recommendation, right? Just kind of showing how the math works. If it were to go, if there would be a levy issue in November of 2026, if it were approved, we would start collecting those dollars in calendar year of 2027, which would be the first half of calendar year 2027 falls into fiscal year 27, and then the second half of 2027 falls into calendar year 28. That's why it's half. That's why you see half of that 10 million in 27 and the full amount in 28. So this could be used as either revenue or just reductions would play the same way. But if we would receive new money next fiscal year, that deficit in 2029 would be a positive $10 million, and in 30 it'd be a negative 2.2 million, which through some savings that could be manageable. So it brings down those deficits. If it's not passed in 2027 and we go into the next calendar year, just see how that shift changes, where fiscal year 29 goes from a positive 10 million to a positive 100,000, and fiscal year 30 goes from a negative 2.2 million to 11 million. So that's how the difference between November 2026 and calendar year 2027. So when I say calendar year 2027, whether it's passed in May of 2027 or November of 2027, we'll start collecting those dollars in calendar year of 28. So that's kind of why I say calendar year 2027. And then that was in February when we went over the forecast at that point. And then just for conversation purposes, I created a Google sheet that's linked to the agenda. I think it's public now that everyone can see it. There's a summary sheet. I just put more scenarios out there to get the conversation started. So in each tab, the summary sheet's here, and then each tab there's a scenario is linked to the scenario. That way you can see the math behind it. But our current situation is the first line is if the renewal levy is approved, or we have the renewal levy, if it's approved, our cash balance in fiscal year 2030. And this is looking based on our cash balance policy. What I was doing here was trying to get a target to our cash balance policy. We don't have to do that. The board can decide whatever they want to do at that point. But I was just kind of linking it to the policy of What will we need to have, what either dollar revenue or reductions would we need that to bring a 90-day cash balance in the last year of the forecast? So the current situation is if we do nothing but with the renewal, we'll have a negative cash balance of $32 million in fiscal year 30. Scenario 1 is if we renew the levy, which is $8.3 million, an additional new levy, if it was approved in November of 2026, that value would be a 7.5 mil levy that would generate $17 million to get us to a cash balance in fiscal year 30 of $26.6 million, which would be 98 days on cash on hand. Sticking with November 26, if we wanted a smaller amount levy, if the 7.5 was too large, we could go with a 5.5 million, and then $5 million of reductions would get us to that same point. If we're looking at the comparison, November 2026 versus 2027, scenario 1 versus scenario 3, if there's no reductions, to get us to the same spot, in scenario 3, or to scenario 1 for scenario 3, is if something were to pass in calendar year 27, it would need a 10.5 mil levy that would generate about $23 million a year to get to that point. But if there were reductions on hand, it would be 7.5 mil levy with a $5 million reductions. And again, these are just numbers for conversation purposes, not any recommendations, just to, it is just to get the conversation started with the board. If we only do the renewal and no new levy, we would need to make $18 million of annual cuts beginning in fiscal year 27. So any of these reductions would be beginning in fiscal year 27. So they would be implemented in fiscal year 27, so the planning would need to start next fiscal year. Going into next fiscal year starts in 2 months, so next school year. And then if there is no renewal levy, no new levy, and to get us to the 90 days with fiscal year 30, we would need $24 million reductions. Currently, we are at, this year will be about 93 million. Next year will be about 97 million, 100 million, 103, and 106.
So that's like cutting 25%.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I wanted to share for now. If there's any questions, just to get the conversation started for this meeting, and if there's anything you may come back with for future meetings.
So as everyone's processing and George shared, ultimately what we need direction from the board on is what's the goal line, what's the destination, what do we want to achieve? Based on the policy, George has stated as a starting point as 90 days cash balance in the last year of the forecast. But that could be whatever you want it to be. It could be 30 days of cash in the last day of the forecast. And all of that changes the millage amount, it changes the reduction plan. So that's what we would like you to be thinking about as we move forward, of how long do you want this levy to last? If that's days cash on hand, if it's years, whatever it is, hey, we want to be able to be financially stable through FY29, through FY30, through FY31. George could do his thing to figure out what's the millage, what's the reductions, what would that be? So if we continue on to the other part that we need to talk about, which is the bond, and
Dr. Arp, can I just add one more thing?
please, Jack. Go ahead.
Within this Google sheet, as you're looking at the scenarios, if you want to play around with it, you can just make a copy, save it, and you can plug in numbers. And then also what's linked in here, where it's linked on every scenario, is the millage calculator. So it's just a chart, so if you want to see what a 5 mil levy represents, you can go to this line, 5 mils, it represents 11.3 million, or so on. So it has that linked in there just as a reference. So I just wanted to let you know it was there. So I go into the bond project.
Yeah. So if we take a look at the bond project, that's the other part that, in addition to the operating expenses, we need to take a look at and consider. So as you can see here, through column,
I lost the tab.
no, I hit it. This is the tab that we want. Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, that's
I
okay.
just saw it there, that's why.
Yeah. So the yellow cells are what failed. That's the foundation for the future plan. That's what failed at the ballot in May, and those were the dollar figures that were there. So we've talked with GPD, who talked to a construction partner, and we asked them, obviously these are preliminary estimates, depending on what the board does, they would go fine tune those. But they are estimating that if the bond is put on the November ballot and it passes, or we would put it on, it would be a 3% increase in the cost just because of the passage of time. So rough estimate, it would add about $5 million to the project. Row 11 is the total cost of the bond. Row 12 is should the board decide to allocate the same $10.5 million from the 070 account, that would be what would be on the ballot. So you could see for 158.1 to 147.6, which was May, would go up to 162 million, really 163, and then 152. And then finally, if it passes in May, you put it on the May ballot, you'd be looking at a 6% increase, and you could see the cost there. So just as a frame of reference as to decision-making and timing and the increase of cost for that project, should it stay the same. Any questions on that one? All right, so you've got the operating expenses outlook in scenarios, the bond. You see the progression there. I just thought it would be good to share the election history. So there's a tab there for the election history. And George, if you go to current expenses. So the way we've broken this down, there's a master. So we've got this is a summation of all of our ballot issues over the last 41 years since 1985. The master just looks at all of that and breaks it down by percentage passage in different areas. The current expenses just breaks that out. These are operating expenses. So these are new and renewals. Red, you could see our failures. White, our passages. The reason row 21 is highlighted in blue is because, as we've said numerous times, we are living on a budget after we spend down the $50 million that we got from the 2019 levy. Our last active levy is from 2007. So for people where do we get this from? That's where you could see that's the last new levy that's been passed. The renewal that George just talked about is from 2002. And then the 2019 levy is crossed out. It did pass, but because of the three failures in rows 30 through 32, that removed that from the books, and that cash is being spent down. At the top, we just broke down, we've had 25 attempts of new money. In the last 41 years, 28% of those have passed, so 7 of those have passed. I have been here for 23 of those years, and what I will say clearly is that through those 23 years, the reason people say no has changed. But the data says clearly that our community does not financially support our district in a consistent manner. 28% is an extremely low passage rate for what we're able to provide as a school district. And so I know there's a narrative during these different phases, but those narratives have changed, but the consistency has been that we've had low support from our community for our school district financially. Renewals, you could see those passed with 100% until the last year, and then 3 of those have failed. And then we don't have a lot of the elections that used to be here. There's a lot of different special elections you can have. Basically, it's November and May, and you could see the passage rates there. And then the other tabs do the same thing. So you could see, George, if you click on the bond, you could see the past history of the bond. We've asked the community in the last 40 years for 11 times for bond issues, and 4 of those have passed, and you could see when those were. So again, I think that's important considerations as we take a look at the timing. If you look at the other tab, November has been our most successful time, even though it may not feel like that recently. That has been more successful time versus the off elections. But if we take a look at the bond levy scenarios, which is the next tab, or the next link, and you have this as a handout in front of you. Putting this all together, I just kind of want to work you through our thought process as we went through this. I took a look at the next 4 election cycles of November 26, May of 27, November 27, May of 28. And if you take a look at all of George's financial modeling, we have to pass new money by November of 27 to survive. My word is chosen carefully, to survive. That just means we don't have a negative number. We are cut to the bone, but we don't have a negative number. So we would need to pass in November of 27. But when you look at what happens in November of 27, outside of what we may be on the ballot for, you have a mayoral election. With Megan's resignation, you will now have 4 board member seats on that election, and you will have the 3-year reappraisal of our home values. That is not a good mix for support of a school issue. So we believe that November of 27 is off the table, that's not something that we should consider. So that's how you get down to, you've got 2 election cycles to decide what you're going to do with the renewal, new operating, and the bond. And so as we take a look at the givens here, as that says at the top, a given is that we've got an operational urgency by May of 2027. George has clearly shared the relationship between millage and reduction plan, but we've got to do something to continue on to live another day by May of 27. Again, if we take a look at the second bullet, with the bond project, even though we're already seeing $10 million go up, if we want to continue to look at the plan that we spent 3 years developing and seeing that come to fruition, you can't wait much longer before it becomes untenable because of the increase of cost. We talked about the high-risk political environment in November of 27. This is not a Strongsville statement, but it's a general Ohio statement right now, is there's just an anti-tax sentiment, and we understand that and are empathetic to it. But what we feel is, as we talk to community members, people understand our needs and understand the needs for facilities, understand the needs for operating, and people have to make their individual decisions for that, but there's just an overall anti-tax sentiment right now in the state. The last 3 renewals operating that we failed, the message that we got was spend the cash balance down. Well, the cash balance is being spent, and as George shared, it will be gone. So that part of our community feedback is a given. As it was said earlier, we lost by approximately 450 votes within a community our size. That's in the ballpark of we were close. And then obviously we understand all the things, right? Gas, food, utilities, expenses, everything is going up quicker than paychecks can keep up with. And so we've got to take a look, and it doesn't fall on deaf ears. And this is not a cavalier comment, but we don't have any other option. Our options are reduce or property tax, and some may say income tax, but I think we've got a good sample size to say that really wasn't popular this past November either. So we don't have options, but we have a responsibility to serve our children in the best way possible so that they can be all that they need to be in the future. So what I tried to do is break down this into options. And so as we take a look at the scenarios, again, these are just things to think about as we start to start big and go small in terms of our decisions. But just scenarios, and I'm not going to read through the advantages and risks. Those are just some samples that you could take a look at. But the first 2 options are basically the same. It's just the order. So scenario 1 is that you would say, hey, in November of 2026, we're going to take care of our essential functions, our operations first. We've got to solidify that. And that would be the renewal. George's simulation in the forecast put $10 million because that recaptured the 2019 bond. Or new money is additional money. And so we would take care of that. So we would say, hey, a renewal and new money we've got to put on the November 26 ballot. Or, which is in parentheses there, you could consolidate it into one issue. You could say, hey, we're going to let the renewal go, We're just going to say, here's what we need. This is one operational issue. Here's the millage we need, and just put it down into one issue. And then you'd come back, you'd see what would happen, but in May, you'd say, hey, we could take care of the bond in May. Any clarifications on that first scenario? Because a lot of them riff off of that. Scenario 2 is just flip-flopped. Bond first, operating second. Option 3 gets into the, hey, if you want to go with the sure thing, even though it's not sure, but the surer thing would be to say, hey, we're not asking for new taxes, we're just asking for a renewal. Solidify that, and then come back in May with the additional ask. Scenario 4 is saying, let's just put it all together. Here's what we need. Let's put the new money and the bond issue all on one ballot, and go from there. Scenario 5 is same as scenario 1, but instead of the foundation for the future plan, you would do a different version of that, a reduced version. And then scenario 6 is just a different iteration of doing the bond and the renewal plus new money in May. As the board considers all the complexities of these different scenarios, I just want to remind everyone that George's point on his chart is that to address any reductions, those would need to be planned out next school year to be implemented for the following school year. So you also want to consider at what times are you going to give the community a voice so that they can know the plan and vote accordingly. And should they have one opportunity to do that, or should they have two opportunities to do that? That should be, as I'm sure it is, a critical consideration, which kind of then guides where the operating levy should maybe go. So that's that chart. Any questions on that? Okay. And then what we wanted to do to wrap up this part of it is George can share some highlights of the timelines that we have to follow to make these decisions.
So if we were looking to go in November, here are the filing timelines. So I'm going to start first with the bond, for a bond timeline, because that's a little different than operating. The bond is has earlier timelines than an operating, but not too far different. So the November election is November 3rd, 2026. So we have a board meeting at the end of June, June 25th. At that meeting, we would need to adopt that 4% consent resolution, similar to what we did in the winter. I think it was in December. And that one that goes to the Department of Taxation because we would exceed our 4% assessed valuation for outstanding debt. That would go to the tax commissioner, and then that wouldn't, if we don't do it at the June 25th meeting, that filing deadline is July 6th, which is 120 days from the election. So with the 4th of July holiday, that June 25th meeting would be ideal for that. And then in July of 2026, we would need two board resolutions to go on the ballot. The first one is the resolution of necessity, which asks the county to certify the millage amount. We have a board meeting July 9th. We could do that at the July 9th meeting. And then we would need resolution number 2. July 9th is our only board meeting that we have in July. We do have a board retreat, but we would need to do a special board meeting an additional special board meeting for resolution 2 of 2 to file with the Board of Elections. That one would put it on the ballot. That filing deadline is July 28th, which would be the 98th day, and we would need to schedule this meeting as it's not on the calendar. So potential date, just sticking with Thursdays, is July 23rd, or potential date there. Any questions on the bond timeline of it operating? So as you can imagine, these are coming up pretty quick, or these deadlines are coming up pretty quick. And then for an operating timeline to be on the November 3rd ballot, This is, we can do this in June or July. It's the two resolutions. We would just working backwards. The filing deadline for the second resolution is August 5th. So we have a board meeting June 25th and July 9th. We can do resolution one of two, the resolution of necessity. That one certifies the millage and the amount to the county. We could do that either June 25th or July 9th. And then we would need to have a second resolution approved before the filing date of August 5th. So again, sticking with Thursdays, we could do a July 23rd special board meeting to do resolution 2 of 2, or we can just, or another option would be is resolution 1, June 25th, resolution 2, July 9th, and then it's taken care of. So those are the timelines. So really for that one is working back from August 5th, as long as we have the two resolutions approved prior to August 5th. And I'm not recommending a board meeting on August 5th because we would have to file that day. So prior to August 5th. Any questions on timeline?
So as we wrap up this conversation, just to kind of distill it one more time, what we need direction on from the board is, what's the benchmark you want to hit financially? How long do you want the money to last? That's the first thing we need to know, and then that drives the rest of it, which is, based on that target you want to hit, when do you want to put these issues, and what issues do you want to put on the ballot? Do you want to do the renewal and new money separate, or do you want to put that in a combined issue? And then when do you want to start that? And then the same, the bond would just be a timing piece of it. And then that would drive everything else, correct, George?
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. And then, and then the next school year, or the next school year, the May 27 filing deadlines would be similar to this past May. And then I think the following year, not getting too far ahead, calendar year 28, I think is a presidential year, so that May ballot issue could be in March, based on the primaries.
George, the only scenario that I was thinking maybe we could add is if we take the 070 fund and put it back in the general fund.
Okay. And
What would that do?
it's in as its entirety as a starting point, or?
What would that do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a timeline question, different kind of timeline, though. I'm looking at these, and a lot of the scenarios have reductions in them, which is no surprise. What kind of timeline do you need to give us a comprehensive list of what those would be? And is that timeline different if we say we want to save 5 million versus 18?
So I think if we follow the same time, I'm talking just off the top of my head. So I think if we follow the same timeline as like George's timelines for filing, like that will give us enough lead time to do everything that we need to do.
So 2-ish months.
Yeah. And then really for us, since the majority, we already have a map out of reductions that can go beyond what we're already implementing for next year. When you're taking a look at 5 million or 18 million, it is just deeper cuts to staff. So it's the same process, it's just going further. And nobody likes to say it aloud, but these are taking a look at, you get into the $18 million range. Those are catastrophic costs where you're saying there's no more of this, there's no more of that. Anything that's discretionary is basically non-existent.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mrs. Hausen, just as a clarifying question, with the new scenario, drawing that back, do you want to see it with renewal levy, with reductions, or just, how do you want to see that? Or do you want me to come up with different scenarios with it? combination of.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
That's okay.
I know. I think without the renewal levy to start.
Okay. I could do it right now.
While he's doing that, do we have any of that money allocated? I mean, we had potentially allocated some of it tonight, that's on pause. Any others? I know that we just talked about Steve doing an amended summer project. Is any more of that? It's not allocated. Okay.
It's not allocated in there, so that's a good point to bring up, to say, because of the bond project, the Facilities Development Committee put on pause roof replacements, some of those things. He does not have the money in his permanent improvement budget to cover those things. So if it's brought back into the general fund, it would just be a board decision whether he could use them from the general fund. It's just a funding source change. But he does not have the funds in his PI budget to cover some of those costs.
Mrs. Hausum, drawing back 20 million from the 070 fund with no renewal levy and no additional funding, it would change the $24 million of reductions to $18 million worth of reductions.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Doesn't buy us much time.
Right.
Okay. And we do have a facilities meeting next week, so I'm sure we'll be touching on what needs to be done to our buildings. Okay, thank you, George.
Yep.
Anything else on that topic?
All right.
All right, I do have a couple other items under my report. Under item 2, administrative handbook, and number 3 is the leadership handbook. We have similar revisions in both. So as I shared at the beginning of the meeting, we've made some organizational changes that required title changes, and then addition of those changes to the salary schedule, so those have been made. As well as the board knows, we changed board attorneys. We had a question about a vacation leave provision. Our new attorneys reviewed it and had some suggestions to where we can have more clarity in the language. We always have this reviewed, but it was a law firm change that said, hey, we think you could be clear in your language. So it does not change any of the content that was there. It doesn't add any different privileges. It's just a better clarification of vacation language for those that earn it with some of the changes that were implemented. So that's number 2 are those changes for the administrative team, and 3 are the changes for our leadership team. Any questions for me on those items? All right, next we're going to move to Steve for a discussion on impractical transportation. You were updated on this in my last update, as well as Steve has a chart for you to highlight to get some guidance from you.
Good evening, everyone. So as you know, for a few years now, we have been always looking at who we're transporting, what schools that we're transporting to. So just to keep this simple, for the sake of being in compliance with school law and staying with getting funding, anything over 30 minutes we do not have to transport to, nor do we have to pay payment in lieu of, which is a state formula. And then we're told that we have an amount of money we need to pay to parents that are within 30 minutes of the school door that they would attend if they were attending Strongsville City Schools, and also and that we do not provide a bus for. So there are multiple of those. However, every year we audit the ones that we are transporting to see how many students are being transported, what is that costing the district at this point in time, and if needed, look at what would be if we decided as a district to declare these students impractical. And we've been through this process before. So in front of you, you have a chart, and the question I get asked the most when we start dealing with impracticality or what are some of the criteria. So at the bottom, There's the green, yellow, and red. And you can see there's some monetary factors, but there's also factors that are not monetary. So, of course, we talk about student ridership, and then what is the cost per student to transport as it pertains to our T2 reports, which is all based on how much funding we get from the state. What is the payment in lieu of cost? And then also, what is the distance and travel time? And are these routes combined with our current routes? So, as you can see here, let's pick out St. Joseph's and John's, which is halfway in the page. The average cost for the students riding the bus per our T2 report for fiscal year 2025 was $1,030.32. We always try to have 40 students as an average on our buses. Excuse me. So if I take that number and simply multiply it by 40, you get the 41,000 and some change. So that's the metric that we have. So then we start looking at number of students transported. For St. Joseph's and John's, you can see the average ridership every day is 202 with 120 in the morning, 284 in the afternoon. So obviously that's why they're in green. We're transporting a lot of students. They're fully integrated into our middle school routes. And the cost per student, if we were to say, okay, we're not going to transport St. Joseph's and John's, and let me be clear for the sake of the record, we are not saying that. But if we were to take the payment in lieu of per student times the number of students that attend St. Joseph's and John's that reside in Strongsville, even if they don't utilize our transportation, that number is 340. If all 340 students, and we said it's impractical, we would have to pay the payment in lieu of, the district will be looking at almost a $200,000 payment. So when we contrast that with $40,000 for a bus or $41,000 for a bus, it makes perfect sense for us to keep transporting to St. Joseph's and John's. The ridership is there, the operational cost is there for us to transport rather than have payment in lieu of. Does that make sense, the formulaic process here? The one that, so all of those that are green meet the criteria as set out. As you can see, Royal Redeemer, we do have some yellow there and even some red. However, what I would point you to is it's not just about the ridership, because we do combine Royal Redeemer and St. Albert the Great on the same buses. So for us to just cut and declare Royal Redeemer impractical, we would be having buses going the same distance with less kids, and that's not practical. So as long as this routing stays the same, as long as if the ridership increases, of course it would be easier. But even though there's some yellow and red there, I'm not putting up for recommendation that we stop transporting to St. Albert the Great. I'm sorry, Royal Redeemer. You can see Incarnate Word is in yellow. And the only reason for that is we do have some criteria in there where the number of the ridership of the students. I'm sorry, that should be now green. That was yellow. They've bumped up their ridership. I'll correct that. I apologize. Strongsville Academy, there are some red criteria in there. This is a K2. This is not our in-house Strongsville Academy. This is another Strongsville Academy in town here. It's a K2 building. Even though we only transport an average of 6 kids, and the cost to transport them in comparison to our own kids is high, the consideration is we fully integrated this into our middle school routes, and these are also younger siblings of students that we're already going to the door. So to pick that student up, they do a quick transfer, they go down the road, we drop them off. To say it would be impractical with the short duration of time, distance, and the fact that it's intertwined with our current routing, I'm not comfortable saying to the board at this point it's impractical to transport to Strongsville Academy. However, the last one and the one I want to draw your attention to is St. Mary's. For the longest time, and this is in Berea, we've had this in yellow. However, even though the ridership is just above the line, We say anything under 10 is that red danger zone. We have an average of 12. You can see that the cost to transport those students versus the cost to transport a student whenever it's 40 kids on the bus is over that threshold. It's almost $3,500 to transport those students at this time. Also, if every student that attended St. Mary's that lives in Strongsville was to get payment in lieu of, there's 32 students right now on their roster. That would equate to $18,000 and some change, $18,500. You're looking at basically half the cost of what it's costing us right now to send a bus there. So that's the consideration I'm asking the board to look at, is to consider declaring St. Mary's impractical for transportation at this point due to those factors: low ridership, the cost to transport those students, the cost of what it would be to do the payment in lieu of to all the students on the roster that are attending St. Mary's that live in Strongsville. And the other thing that is non-monetary is this is a standalone bus. There's no one else around there that we transport to, so it's a dedicated bus. So if we stop transporting them and declare it impractical, the effect on our current buses would be we have another morning route, another evening route, and another midday driver. So it's definitely a benefit to the department. As you know, we're always stretched thin with the amount of drivers. So this would be a +1 driver, which equates to a +1 high school route if needed, middle school route if needed, elementary route if needed. So all those factors combined are leading me to ask for your consideration to declare St. Mary's, the busing to St. Mary's impractical at this time. So we've been through this process before. There's a state mandate that if we're going to consider doing this, we at least have to give the school and the parents 30 days notice before we stop. This is in plenty of time to have parents receive this information. Once, and if the board was to follow through with that recommendation, a letter would be sent to both the school and the parents saying that this is the board's decision, upon ratification of that idea. And then the parents would have an opportunity to go to mediation, what's called a Chapter 119 with the board, with the State of Ohio Department of Transportation. They oversee this, and then they would hear the case. During that time, while the case is pending, we still have to provide transportation to the school. So the first decision the reason for the discussion is the first decision needs to be, are we going to, as a school district, declare for the reasons that were laid out that it's impractical to transport to St. Mary's? If that's the case, we have gone 2 routes before. We have called in the administration to say, you guys are basically on double secret probation, and if you don't have your ridership increase by this much, the monetary, the ridership, next year we'll declare you impractical. However, in doing that, we're not only transporting for next school year, and it just takes one parent of the ones that are being transported to say, no, I reject the payment in lieu of program, I still want a school bus, that then would trigger a Chapter 119 case. And from my experience and what we've done in the past, sometimes those cases take up to 6 and 7 months to be heard. So we would basically be locked into not only next year for the school to try and bolster the attendance on the bus, but also the following year until the decision would be reached by the magistrate, we would be transporting. So potentially 2 more years to transport. Versus if we declared them impractical this year, and then a parent says, no, I reject the payment in lieu of, we would potentially be looking at just 1 more year with the mediation and a decision by the magistrate. So those 2 options are there for your consideration.
Questions for Steve? Comments?
Historically, what's their highest usage?
I'm sorry?
Historically, what's been their highest usage?
I'd have to go back before, but 2003, they were like at 15.
Okay.
So
What I'm curious is if we use our previous pattern and say you're on double secret probation, if you build the numbers, then it justifies itself.
Mm-hmm.
But can they realistically build the numbers? And that's what I'm
With the numbers, so if the snapshot is right now, of course, this is the roster this year. We know they're going to, because of the grade levels that the school has, 4 of those students are going to be automatically off because they're going to be in larger grades. From what we have in our form that was sent to St. Mary's and all of our parochial schools saying, if you need transportation next year, let us know. We only have 2 coming back on that are kindergarten next year. So to answer your question, if this was the snapshot and every single student rode, that'd be 32, then yeah, I think the numbers would look a lot different. But I have no historical data saying that these numbers are going to increase that dramatically.
Can we at least start the conversation? I mean, there's nothing to, unless I misunderstand it, there's nothing to stop us from calling the admin and saying.
So they received a letter in the winter saying, we're doing an audit. Make sure your parents know that we're doing an audit. Encourage people to ride as much as possible. But as far as that one-on-one conversation, I have not had that yet.
And there's nothing to preclude us from doing that.
Correct.
Okay.
And if we send the letter, like if we start the process, we send the school the letter, we send the letter to the parents, could we resend then if we get more riders, since we're well beyond the 30 days?
So what I would say is, if we decide to do it, I mean, we could always rescind it. If we get just a groundswell and all the parents and all their kids are here, the 32 come in. The other thing would be, we could also see if every one of those 32 parents reject the payment, the magistrate could say, okay, well, obviously there's 32 parents here that still want this. I will tell you, just for sake of information, from what I've seen historically, we did this with another school. They were at about 5 to 6 students that we were transporting. We declared them impractical. I had many, like 8, 9 letters saying I want to ride the bus, and only 2 parents showed up to the hearing for the Chapter 119. So yes, we could rescind if we get the groundswell, and I would be the first one to say, if we can get that kind of dedication, it's not that we don't want to transport our students. It's nothing about transporting the students to our own buildings. That's why I pointed out there's some other people on here that have some red criteria, but they're integrated into our system. We want to transport all the kids regardless of the school they go to if they're Strongsville residents. But there are times where it's just not feasibly and operationally practical from a money standpoint to keep doing it, when we know we're also hurting internally for drivers to be transporting the kids to and from Strongsville City Schools.
So for me, as Steve and I work through these conversations, and I'm a part of the hearings with Steve when we have them, the question to ponder is, do you want to transport for 2 more years or 1 more year? That's really what it comes down to, is that duration. Or if they get the kids. But what we've seen historically with St. Mary's is the enrollment from Strongsville residents has declined. And it's been pretty level at this low, and based on its location, it's a standalone bus. So, Steve, if just, you told me, but I can't remember off the top of my head, is this like to declare St. Mary's impractical, is that a board vote that needs to happen?
Yeah, it would
so
take
that
a
would
board,
be the next agenda?
Yeah, it would take a board resolution, like I said, as long as it's within 30 days of us actually starting to do the transport, then we're fine as far as the statute is concerned. If we're already considering this, if the numbers are what they are, and the board is considering this, to postpone the resolution is really just postponing the time that the parents that are affected by this would have the ability to start looking at alternate transportation, or gearing up to look into their options for the mediation and all of that.
So one of the options we have, I mean, it's been a long meeting and a lot to discuss, is we could, we have time, we could put it on the meeting next week, and you guys could table it, you could vote on it, you could, whatever you want to do. So, I mean, that's an option that we could do. I'm just suggesting to you, reaching out to St. Mary's and say, hey, we're seriously looking at you. It's not going to change. They just don't have the bodies that are going to ride the bus to do it. So it's not going to change anything. It's more of a, do we accept this level and we're okay with it? Or do we start the process to say, we've got to, if we're looking at reducing $15 million, we got to look at every aspect of it, and that includes, as Steve said, it has nothing to do with our desire or want to. It just has to do with efficiency of resources.
If I can suggest, let's put it on the agenda for the next board meeting in 6 days. But what I do want to suggest we do, one of the things that is timely for me is as much work as we have done for the bond and everything else, getting the message out. The response I always get is, I didn't know. So let's put it on the agenda, but let's also go and make the phone call and talk to them and let the parents know publicly, and not just with an email, not just with, we've already sent the letter, et cetera. Call the principal and say, this is what we're looking at. Act accordingly, so that if you, what I want to avoid is that road we always go down, if only I knew. And now it's, the board's already made decisions. I want to make sure that we have the buses, I want to make sure they're used. Nobody wants to pay for a bus, nobody wants the taxpayer to pay for a bus to drive 3 kids to school. On the other hand, I think it's reasonable if you have 30 kids going, we'll provide the bus, right? But if that resonates, I think that's a way for us to move forward.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, thank you, everyone.
A few items under Human Resources. Number 1 is resignations certificated. If we look at item 2, as I shared in some of my opening comments, we did some structural changes, so this is the first, and this does require board action. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the following administrative position be eliminated due to the reorganization and or consolidation of administrative functions effective July 31st, 2026 for the position of Director of Instructional Technology. Be it further resolved upon my recommendation that the following administrative contract be suspended effective August 1st, 2026 as a result of the implementation of the above reduction in force in accordance with Board Policy 1540.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Bissell, second by Mr. Wall. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, George, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Under item 3, again, an action item be resolved upon my recommendation that the following leadership position be eliminated for the same reasons and effective the same date. That be for the position of Coordinator of Technology. Be it further resolved upon my recommendation that the leadership contract be suspended effective August 1st, 2026 as a result of the implementation of the above reduction in accordance with Board Policy 1540.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Bissell, second by Mr. Wall. Any questions? Hearing none, George, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Number 4 is the appointment of administrative position, and we were able to meet Kirsten earlier today. On number 5 is the appointment of leadership positions. Keith, who we met earlier today, and Chris, who we eliminated his position, but we're bringing it back as a different position as an EMIS coordinator to support that part, so that he is recalled from that reduction of force into this new position that better aligns to our district needs. And then under 6, we've got the appointments of certificated staff. So I just want to commend Jenny and Ryan and all of our principals. We've had a very successful hiring season. I think, are we almost completely full with our teaching positions, right?
Yeah, I think we just have one more long-term sub to hire.
Yeah. So,
Knock on wood.
knock on something.
Knock on something.
But we're in a good position there, and then we've got a couple other positions that we're still non-classroom that we're still filling, but it's been a good hiring season. With that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the adoption of consent calendar. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of consent calendar. At this point of the agenda means that all items appearing in this agenda denoted as typed dash action consent, which items constitute the consent calendar, are adopted by one single motion unless a member of the board or the superintendent requests that such items be removed from the consent calendar and voted upon separately. Anybody have anything to be removed? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Bissell, second by Mr. Wall. George, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next, we have some first readings of board policies. They're all listed. If anyone has any questions, you could reach out to Eric and/or Michelle. Next, we have Board of Education Other. Does anyone have any others to share?
I will say, Mrs. Hausum, just one clarifying question that I forget, not question, statement from what I forgot to mention earlier about the process of filling a vacancy. This is more for the public as well. So due to the timing of Megan's resignation, so there's with filling a vacancy for the term that the replacement will serve, it's the shorter of until completion of the unexpired term, or this is a little wordy and I'll explain it, until the first day of January immediately following the next regular board election taking place more than 90 days after a person is selected to fill the vacancy. At that election, a special election to fill the vacancy will be held. So what that means is our next general election for board members is November of 2027. So the person that would fill Ms. Hafner's seat will serve until 2027, and then there will be a separate petition to be pulled by, that will be on the ballot for a candidate to go on the election to fill the remaining 2 years of her term. So as Cameron kind of alluded to in one of the updates that we were talking about, there'll be 4 board members on that November 2027 election. So it'll be 2 separate questions on the ballot. One for the 3 terms, or the 3 seats, which is Mr. Miko's, yours, and Mrs. Bissell's, and then a separate one for Ms. Hafner's seat for the remaining 2 years. So just wanted to clarify that. I forgot to mention that during the process earlier.
So just to clarify, the person that we appoint will be a little less than 2 years, and then there will be a seat on the ballot for 2 years.
Correct.
That anyone could apply for,
Correct.
or pull a petition for.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
So it'll serve out the same, it'll keep the regular, after that, it should keep the cadence back to
Yes.
the 4-year term for that seat.
Got it. Okay.
And then all of the next steps in terms of applications, there will be a notice sent out tomorrow morning
Yeah, once we figure out the timelines.
that will share with the community and the media all the steps to, if they're interested, to submit applications and the timeline of the process.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is executive session. We do have need to enter into executive session.
To consider the appointment of a public official.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Bissell, second by Mr. Wall. George, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Motion carries. We'll enter into executive session at approximately 8:55. We don't see need to resume public session, so I want to wish everybody a good night.